Alright, so today we're playing a game that most people have probably forgotten about by now, Rogue Company. This was a game that was made by Hi-Res Studios, the creators of Paladins, and was one of the games that came out during the COVID era, during the lockdowns in 2020, and originally had a lot of promise and potential. And there was a lot of hype surrounding this game. But over time, it became very clear that this game was going nowhere fast, and the player base left in droves because of the lack of updates and content and consistency. So we are left with a game that still is online, and you'll still find players in 2025, but there really isn't a whole lot of reasons to actually still play this game in 2025 because they released a lot more updates for Paladins over the last couple of years than they did with Rogue Company. As a matter of fact, Rogue Company didn't get any new content, new heroes, or anything in a very, very long time, while Paladins, up until recently actually, has been continued to get full support and development from the studio. So, yeah, I liked this game originally. I thought it was kind of fun. There weren't really a lot of games like it. Third-person, tactical, Counter-Strike style gameplay. I'm not going to say it's a complete ripoff of Counter-Strike just because it has weapon purchases and it's a round-based shooter. It's kind of unfair to just categorize it as that. It was definitely a lot more than just that. And it had its own unique feel to it. That being said, it wasn't a game that had a whole lot of staying power. The gameplay was fine. It wasn't out of this world extraordinary either. It was a decent free to play game. But once other games came around, like Valorant and other titles, it just grabbed other people's attention, and this was, yeah, it didn't stand a chance. It really didn't. And there were some fucked up things that they did also. They released the Nintendo Switch version and then shut the Switch version down for I don't know what reason, because they said the game didn't run properly on the Switch, but you should have known that before you decided to release it on the Switch. So that's one entire player base that completely got fucked by the studio and weren't able to play the game anymore. And then I'd say it was, by like 2022, the game was mostly dead. Just not even a couple years after its release. So here we are 5 years later now, and yeah, it's there aren't any hackers or cheaters or anything like that. Nothing that stands out like other older games that have been abandoned. Like, oh, you definitely cannot or should not play this game. It's just we're talking about playing a game in 2025, and unless you have deep nostalgia for this game, there really is no value in it. And it was really frustrating because I had an account. I played this game when it originally released, but didn't play for a really long time, for a couple years. So I come back and I am greeted to a forced, well, it's not a forced tutorial actually. It's a fucking, like, it's the public matchmaking, but it's practice against AI. And that took me over an hour to finally complete and not be matched up against AI anymore. Like, you could clearly tell when you're playing against a human, when you're playing against an AI, because it's just way too easy. They're just literally running into walls, and you can tell that, yeah, these aren't actual players here. So it took me, my time is valuable. Maybe back in the day, I wouldn't care about having to waste an hour on being able to actually play the game, but it was just an hour of pure just boredom and misery because of how easy and simple the AI was. And it's stupid. If I'm a returning player, to force me to do that is beyond dumb. Even if I was a new player, I stay away from multiplayer games that have forced tutorials, forced AI, matchmaking. That's why I don't play PUBG anymore. I always wanted to get back into it, but they have this thing where you have to play against AI for a few rounds, and I can't be bothered with that. I'm like, let me play the goddamn game. So that was really frustrating. And at first I didn't know about this, and I like had to look it up and Google it and be like, am I playing against real people? And sure enough, yeah, they added that into the game where you have to do the fucking AI bullshit. I'm like, oh, that's great. And then I was wondering, like, are there even still people that play this game? And actually there are. And that has a lot to do with the crossplay feature that this game had. So if you're on PlayStation, Xbox, or PC, everyone could play with each other no problem. And I would say this game really is only valuable for those who are still stuck on last-gen consoles. So if you're on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and the reason why I say that is because Valorant is a game that I understand is a completely different game because it plays in first person, and you can't directly compare the gameplay like one-to-one to Rogue Company, but they are very similar in the style of game that we're talking about here. And I would say Valorant is definitely the better game to play in 2025. I don't think anyone can, with a straight face, argue against that. But Valorant is a game that is only available on the newer consoles. So that's why I'm saying if you're still on PS4 or Xbox One, this is the best game if you're into like tactical Counter-Strike style games. But it's living proof that a game doesn't necessarily have to be broken or fundamentally flawed in order to fail or not be that great of a game. Because like this game was very well polished and the gunplay feels good, the map design is pretty good, but it feels like there's something missing. There's just something that was stopping this game from it being taken to the next level and being one of the most successful live service games out there. And it didn't do anything too extraordinary is what I'm trying to say. Is like it didn't have like this standout thing that's like, oh my god, I have to play Rogue Company and no other game. It was a fine game. But in the cutthroat world of live shooters where there's there's just so many different games trying to grab your attention at the same time, you're going to have a lot that just get lost in the shuffle and don't attract nearly as many players as you need in order to be sustainable and successful. And that's ultimately why support for this game lasted maybe a year and a half, if that, at least consistent support. And even then, the updates weren't coming out very often compared to other games, so people just moved on to other stuff. So, I mean, I like the game. I like the variety in the heroes, and it's like it's so hard because I can't like go out and tell you guys there's something about this or that I just hate so much about this game, because there isn't, and there never was. I mean, I was pissed off back in the day about the whole thing with the battle pass, not the battle pass, the hero pass, champion pass, whatever the hell it was, like, you know, when it comes to unlocking the heroes. Because in Paladins previously, if I bought the $30 pass, I got access to all heroes, like, for the entirety of the game's life cycle. So even the heroes that they just released a couple of months ago, the newest heroes in Paladins, I have unlocked automatically because of the thing I bought 8 years ago. But in Rogue Company, they changed the monetization where you only got the heroes, like, before Season 1. So there's all these heroes, like 2/3 of the roster I don't have any access to, and I'm like, I'm not gonna fucking grind for this bullshit. I'm just gonna be like, fuck you, I'm not gonna play. So, yeah, the monetization, while not as bad as other free-to-play games, was also not that great. And, yeah, it was just one of those things that I didn't necessarily hate the game. I was kind of just like, meh. And I think there is a chance that the game, if it didn't launch exclusively on the Epic Game Store, it could have done better if they actually launched on Steam, because Epic Game Store sucks, and there's a lot of people who refuse to play a game if it's on EGS and not on Steam. So that may have hampered it, because this is a game that definitely caters the strongest to the PC player base, and they didn't really do enough to attract that demographic. And the Nintendo Switch is the most populated platform, and then you just decide to get rid of it. That also didn't help either. So yeah, all in all, a lot of it was self-inflicted, but a lot of it was just it's a tough market, and you can have a good game. I think of games like Lawbreakers. Lawbreakers I loved, but it didn't stand a chance against Overwatch and other hero shooters, despite it being its own thing. So it's just, yeah, it's unfortunate that the game is pretty much dead, but there are still players online if you're curious enough and you want to try it out.